You think power means being surrounded by a crowd, with advisors, allies, friends, faces that smile when you speak, nod in agreement, clap when you win, and raise their glasses when you succeed. You imagine the throne is warm, that the crown, though heavy, is somehow shared. You are wrong, completely wrong. The higher you rise, the lonelier it becomes. Not because you push people away, but because you must. If you don't, you will not survive the fall. And everyone falls, except those who build fortresses around themselves, not with stone or steel, but with silence, distance, and strategy. That is the real throne. It is what Machiavelli whispered to princes 500 years ago, and what every surviving CEO, general, and ruler still follows today. You want to know why the most powerful people are always alone? It is not heartbreak. It is not coldness. It is the manual they all read. Rule number 1. Trust is a luxury you cannot afford when the blade is already at your throat. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you saw a world leader, a billionaire, or a military commander laugh freely in a room full of equals? Not a staged photo, not a press conference. I mean a real laugh, one that risks showing weakness, honesty, trust. You have not, because it does not happen. Not at the top. You might call that sad. Maybe it is. But sadness does not keep you alive. Strategy does. Machiavelli did not write The Prince to teach virtue. He wrote it to teach survival. And at that level, survival demands isolation, not by accident, but by design. Think about it. Every person around you is a potential dagger. Smiles mean nothing. Loyalty? Prove it. And even when proven, never believe it completely. Because loyalty shifts with wind, with money, with fear, with opportunity. You think I sound cynical? Good. Cynicism is the armor of the powerful. Naivety is the uniform of the dead. Picture Florence in 1530. A man sits in exile, stripped of power, watching the Medici tighten their grip on the very city he once served. His name is Niccolo Machiavelli. He was not writing philosophy. He was not preaching morality. He was writing a survival manual, a handbook for rulers who refused to end up face down in a ditch with their throats cut. And right there, in chapter 26, he dropped a weapon disguised as wisdom. It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. You have heard that line. Everyone quotes it. Almost no one understands it. It is not about cruelty. It is about control. Love is fragile. Fear is predictable. Love asks for kindness. Fear obeys command. Love whispers behind your back. Fear protects itself, and in doing so, it protects you. That is the first stone of the fortress. You do not build walls to keep enemies out. You build them to remind your friends that you are no longer one of them. Here is the turning point. Those who reach for power understand this instinctively. They do not need to read Machiavelli. They live him. Look at any CEO after a massive layoff. Look at any president after a scandal. Look at any general after betrayal. They do not cry in public. They do not lash out. They do not explain. They stand still, silent, alone. Not because they feel nothing, but because to show pain is to show weakness. And weakness is an invitation, a crack in the armor, a signal to the wolves that dinner is ready. You think power is about charm, about speeches, handshakes, and photo ops. It is not. Power is restraint. It is knowing when to speak and when to vanish. It is letting silence do the talking. It is making others guess what you are thinking. Because the moment they believe they understand you is the moment they start planning to replace you. Let's talk about Caesar. Not the salad, the man. Julius walked into the Senate, surrounded by friends, senators, allies, men who had fought beside him, who laughed with him, who shared his wine. And what happened next? 23 blades. The final strike came from Brutus, the man he had mentored, the one he loved like a son, the one he trusted most. He looked Caesar in the eyes when he did it. You think Caesar didn't see it coming? Maybe he did. Maybe he chose to ignore it. That was the fatal mistake. The moment you start believing in your own legend, believing you are untouchable, believing loyalty is certain, you are already dead. Machiavelli would have warned him. Never sleep in the same room twice. Never eat from the same plate. Never trust the one who calls you father. Too late. It is always too late. Now look at power today. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Putin, Xi Jinping, Biden, Trump. Ideology doesn't matter. Borders don't matter. Industries don't matter. The structure is always the same. Isolation, controlled access. Layers of gatekeepers. Why? Because every interaction is a risk. Every conversation is a potential leak. Every friendship is a future liability. You think they're paranoid? Good. Paranoia is the cost of survival at the top. You think they're lonely? Maybe. But loneliness is the price of sovereignty. You want to rule? You rule alone. You want friends? Resign. Simple as that. And here's what no one tells you. Loneliness is not imposed. It is chosen. Deliberately. Strategically. You think powerful people are victims of their position? No. They designed it. They cut ties before those ties could cut them. They stopped confiding in their spouses after the first leak. They stopped trusting childhood friends after the first betrayal. They stopped sharing dreams after the first time someone uses those dreams against them. You think that's sad? Maybe. But ask yourself this. Would you rather be loved and buried, or feared and alive? Machiavelli answered that question 5 centuries ago. Take a modern example. Steve Jobs, the visionary, the genius admired by millions yet trusted almost no one. Read his biography. Watch the interviews. Talk to those who worked with him. He fired friends. He humiliated allies. He rotated his inner circle like changing clothes. Why? Because he understood that creation requires control. Control requires distance. Distance requires sacrifice. He didn't want loneliness. He chose it. Every time someone got close, they slowed him down, doubted him, challenged him, until the day they replaced him. In 1985, the boardroom coup came. His own company, his creation, pushed him out. And what did he do? He left, built something new, came back, took over, removed the ones who had removed him. After that, no one got close again. Not family, not friends. Even his doctors never knew how sick he truly was until it was too late. That was not tragedy. That was strategy. That was the fortress. You're thinking, what about the cost? The psychological toll, the isolation, the sleepless nights, the paranoia. Yes, all of it. But here's the brutal truth. Power doesn't care about your mental health. It doesn't care whether you're happy or not. It only cares whether you're effective, in control, and unpredictable enough that no one dares to move against you. Happiness is for the middle class, for people who clock out at 5, hug their kids, and forget about work. Power? Power is a war that never ends. And in war, you don't get to be soft. You don't get to be open. You don't get to be understood. You get to be feared, respected, obeyed, and alone. Here's the irony. The lonelier you become, the more powerful you get. Solitude sharpens clarity. Distance breeds objectivity. Silence reinforces control. When you are no longer distracted by opinions, emotions, or friendships, the board becomes visible. You start to move with precision. You stop caring about popularity and start thinking about legacy, survival, domination. That's why kings have no best friends. That's why generals don't share battle plans over dinner. That's why billionaires don't post their real thoughts online. They know every word is a weapon and every silence is a shield. You want the real secret? The most powerful people aren't lonely because they failed at relationships. They're lonely because they mastered strategy. They built fortresses not from stone but from silence, restraint, and ruthless prioritization. They know every friend you let close becomes a possible exit route for your power, so they let no one in. Not completely, not ever. And that isn't weakness. That is the ultimate strength, the strength to choose isolation over vulnerability, control over comfort, survival over sentiment. Think I'm exaggerating? Look around. How many leaders stay in power long? How many CEOs remain at the top? How many politicians retire on their own terms? Almost none. The ones still standing learned early. They stopped trusting. They started observing. They built walls. Not to keep the world out, but to keep their power in. And Machiavelli didn't just describe this. He prescribed it. He never said to be cruel. He said to be smart. He never said to be hated. He said to be feared, because fear lasts longer than love. He never said to be lonely. He said to be untouchable. And the only way to be untouchable is to become unreadable, unpredictable, and alone. You still think power is about connections, influence, networks. Think again. Power is about subtraction, about reducing variables, about eliminating threats, especially those that smile at you. Fortresses are not built from bricks. They are built from silence, from distance, from the willingness to stand alone while the world applauds. If you are not ready for that, stay where you are. At the top, it is colder than you imagine, emptier, quieter, and they want it that way. Because here is what they do not tell you. Loneliness is not the price of power. It is the foundation. You do not lose friends as you climb. You discard them as weights, as anchors, as obligations disguised as loyalty. Every handshake you return, every favor you grant, every secret you share is a tether. The higher you go, the more those tethers become nooses. Machiavelli saw rulers smothered by courtly affection, suffocated by applause, undone by the comforting myth that love is protection. He watched them bleed on marble floors, surrounded by the very people who toasted them the night before. He wrote not with sentiment, but with clarity. Humans are resentful, unstable, deceitful, cowardly, greedy. Not some of them, all of them. Especially those closest to you. You think that harsh? Good. Reality is not wrapped in kindness. It is wrapped in consequence. At the top, misplaced trust means exile, disgrace, prison, or a staged ambush in a boardroom. The era does not matter. The title does not matter. The game remains constant. Only the weapons change. Once it was daggers. Now it is leaked emails, whispered rumors, council votes, shareholder revolts, character assassinations. The rules are the same. The tools evolve. Survivors do not play fair. They do not play kindly. They play alone. Look at Elizabeth, the Virgin Queen. Never married, never produced an heir. Suitors, courtiers, nobles, all angled for favor, for her hand, for the throne itself. What did she do? She set them against one another. She flirted, she delayed, she dangled promises and never fulfilled them. She understood marriage as vulnerability. An heir is a rival. A husband is a co-ruler. So she chose solitude, not out of coldness, but out of calculation. She turned loneliness into leverage, celibacy into political power. While kings around her fell to wives, sons, brothers, she ruled for 45 years. She died alone, yes, but on her terms, in her bed, still in control, still formidable, still untouchable. Not tragedy, mastery, the fortress strategy in action. And this isn't just for royalty. CEOs do it, founders do it, generals do it, coaches do it. Anyone who has ever held real power and kept it understands the rule: closeness is dangerous. The moment someone feels entitled to your time, your trust, or your attention, they start believing they're entitled to your position. And entitlement is the seed of betrayal. You think your CFO is loyal until a better offer appears. You think your deputy won't leak your plans until her ego is bruised. You think your best friend won't sell your secrets until the price is right. Machiavelli never said people are evil. He said they are self-interested. And self-interest doesn't care about friendship. It cares about leverage, about survival, about advantage. If betraying you gets them closer to what they want, they'll do it. With a smile, a handshake, and maybe even tears. You want proof? Look at Sam Bankman-Fried. Young, charismatic, surrounded by friends, running a billion-dollar empire built on trust. Open offices, open books, open heart. And where is he now? In a federal cell. His closest allies testified against him. His inner circle flipped overnight. His empire collapsed. Why? Because he believed in cooperation, transparency, and trust. Noble, maybe. Naive, absolutely. Machiavelli would have warned him. Lock the door, limit access. Assume everyone lies, especially the ones who call you brother. Too late. It is always too late. Now turn the lens. Look at Warren Buffett, nearly a century old, one of the richest men alive, still in control, still respected, still feared. You know what his office looks like? A small, plain box. No assistants hovering, no entourage, no PR handlers staging moments. He answers his own phone, reads his own mail, makes his own calls. And he trusts almost no one with what he really thinks. He plays golf with friends but never talks business. He gives interviews but never reveals his strategy. He smiles for the camera, but his eyes are always calculating. He did not get rich by being liked. He got rich by being unreadable, by standing alone in a crowded room. That is the fortress. Not built from money, but from silence, restraint, and the discipline to let no one inside your mind. And that is the real secret. The fortress is not physical, it is psychological. It is the ability to sit in a room full of people and feel nothing, to hear betrayal and show nothing, to face threats and respond with stillness. That is power. Not shouting, not charisma, not speeches. Stillness, composure, a face no one can read. That is what makes people hesitate. That is what makes them question. That is what makes them fear you, because they do not know what you know or what you might do next. Uncertainty is your greatest weapon, and solitude is the forge where uncertainty is made. You think powerful people do not feel? They do. They simply do not show it. Not because they are machines, but because emotion is something that can be exploited. Tears, anger, joy, distraction, affection, vulnerability, every feeling is a crack in the armor. And at the top, cracks are filled with knives. So they learn to bury emotion behind the smile, the handshake, the silence. You think that is inhuman? Perhaps. But the world they operate in is built that way. You want humanity? Go volunteer. Hug your dog. Write poetry. Power does not reward compassion. It rewards control. And control requires separation. Here is a truth most people refuse to face. Those who crave connection never reach the top and stay there. Not truly. Because connection requires compromise, and compromise is the beginning of the fall. You start listening to advisors. You start pleasing shareholders. You start worrying about public opinion. You begin to value harmony more than victory. At that point, you stop leading and start negotiating. You stop ruling and start managing. And managers are replaceable. Leaders are the ones who replace others, but only when they are willing to stand alone, to make decisions no one else dares to make, to accept being feared, misunderstood, and completely alone. Look at Churchill, celebrated now, hated then. He led Britain through war, brought victory, and was voted out right after. Why? Because he was ruthless, relentless, and impossible to read. People did not like him, did not trust him, did not understand him, but they needed him. And when they no longer did, they discarded him. He saw it coming. He did not cry. He did not beg. He did not campaign. He walked away, alone, because he knew power is rented, not owned. The rent is paid with loneliness, sacrifice, and the willingness to be unloved as long as you remain necessary. This is the final layer. The most powerful are not only alone, they choose to be misunderstood. They cultivate mystery. They speak indirectly. They delay answers. They disappear for days. They refuse to explain. Why? Because clarity invites vulnerability. The moment people believe they understand you, they begin to predict you. And the moment they predict you, they can move against you. So you protect the fog. You protect the distance. You protect the silence. You let them wonder. You let them whisper. You let them fear what they cannot see. That is the real throne. Not a chair or a title, but the silence that surrounds you. Machiavelli did not stop at advising you to be feared. He added a rider you must not miss, which is to avoid being hated. The only way to thread that needle is to become untouchable, unreachable, unreadable. Not a tyrant, not a monster, simply distant, simply solitary. Hatred grows from familiarity, from disappointment, from promises broken, from unmet expectations. Reverence grows from mystery, from distance, from what remains unknown, and reverence is what keeps you safe. Reverence is what preserves your power. So the next time you see a leader standing alone on a podium, silent after scandal, unreadable after crisis, do not pity them. Do not call them cold. Do not wonder why they have no friends. Understand this. They never really had friends in the way you imagine. They had allies. They had instruments. They had assets. Friends are burdens. At the summit, you do not accumulate burdens. You remove them. A fortress is not built to wall the world out. It is built to hold power in. The mortar is silence, distance, the readiness to stand alone even while the crowd screams for you to step down, even when your heart cries for connection, even when you are tired, even when you are afraid, even when you are human. Power does not care about your humanity. It cares about whether you control the field. Control is a solitary mission. Ask yourself then what you want, love or power. You cannot truly have both at the highest level. Not and survive. Machiavelli knew it. History proves it. Those who remain on the peaks live with that truth every day, alone, silent, motionless, untouchable. This is not a warning. This is an invitation to choose, to understand, to build your own fortress, not from fear alone, but from strategy, from clarity, from a ruthless and precise understanding that power does not belong to the beloved. It belongs to the unreadable, the distant, the solitary. If you are ready for that, welcome to the real game, the one no one talks about, the one played in silence, where victory is not friendship but fortification.